What's up guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Cole. I am a freelance cinematographer and colorist based in Atlanta, Georgia. And today we are going to run through a quick and easy color grading tutorial if you want a simple cinematic filmic look in DaVinci Resolve. And let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and take a look at our clip. So this is a shot from FX3 a few years ago that I filmed. So we're going to go ahead and color grade this up and make it look pretty nice. So first thing we are going to do is, before I do anything, I'm going to go down here to this gear and I'm going to go ahead and check this Make Project Broadcast Safe button. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to change my output color space to Rec 709A, since that is what my monitor is. And then I'm putting this to DaVinci Wide Gamut, but we're actually not going to use that color space. I'm probably going to do that in another video. But just doing that, it shifted a little bit because it adjusted to my monitor. So for most people, it's probably going to be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 if you're on a normal computer monitor, or most color grading monitors are actually Gamma 2.4, but I'm on A since I'm on the Apple Studio display. So I go ahead and change that. And we are in log in this clip in S-Log3. So that's going to be our first step, is to convert this to Rec 709. So there's a few ways to do this in DaVinci, and the easiest way is to just pop a LUT on there. That's like the easiest way. The workflow that I use a lot is DaVinci Wide Gamut, but I'm going to go over that in another video. I'm going to keep this relatively simple in this video. And then another way in DaVinci that is probably my favorite way is to use CSTs, or color space transform nodes. And it's pretty much just a smart LUT that is going to allow you to choose whichever color space that you want to go into. So let's go ahead and do it this way, since it's the most simple way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go down to this sgamut3.cine. That's going to be our color space for this, since that was what was on the camera. That's going to be S-Log3. So it's going to be that's going to be our input color space, because that's what is coming in right now. It's in that log state. And then on the output, on the back end, we are going to want Rec 709. So we're going to put Rec 709A. And the way I'm jumping to it, the way you're seeing now is, so I'm going up here and I'm pressing S. So to jump to that, so if this is on use timeline, I'm pressing S and it's jumping straight to the S. And then I'm going to go press the one that I want. So that's actually a trick that I learned over a lot of time of using DaVinci Resolve. And I didn't actually know that that was a thing until I saw someone do it. And I was like, oh, I don't have to scroll all the way down. So let me do that. So now our image is properly converted. So in this tutorial, I'm pretty much just going to show you a couple ways to get a filmic look. So I'm going to want a few nodes. So right now we have really 3. This is just going to be over here, like our transform node. So I'm going to make one more. You can right click and hit add node serial, but I like to just press Alt S. Oop, let me go click this, Alt S on the keyboard. And that is a much quicker way to do it. So that is how I'm going to show you guys. All right, so the next step is going to be to create our look. And I really like to put my look on first, like apply it first, and then go and adjust exposure and balance and all those other things. So some of the main characteristics of like the film look that everyone talks about is it's going to have cooler shadows, warmer highlights, and then it's going to have this filmic contrast where the blacks are lifted and then the highlights are compressed, and then it's going to have the contrast in there. So I'm going to show you guys how to get this look with the free effect. Well, I'm not sure if it's free in the free version, but the way you do it in Resolve with the film look creator, I'm pretty sure this is in the free version of Resolve. It may not be. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we're going to go ahead and plop this on right here. And then off rip, they have these looks. And honestly, they're not bad. So I'm going to go for the cinematic one, pretty much. And that off rip is not bad. So we can go ahead and mess around with some of these sliders, just see what they are doing. And then it's mainly this split toning that's gonna really give you that kind of effect going. So you see, like, the more we push it in, the highlights are starting to warm up, and you can see it at the top here. It's like we go this way and there's more red going in. And then you can also change the hue angle of where all the split toning is happening. Or not hue angle, sorry. The pivot is where you change that. So where you adjust this pivot, it is adjusting that like S curve of where the split toning is happening. So we can go ahead and put it like somewhere here. And that looks pretty good to me. So if we turn that on and off, we're pretty much getting like a super nice split toning straight away. And this is like pretty much the easiest way to do it in Resolve, like that. And then we're also getting, if we flip this on, I actually use a plugin usually to do this halation that I can show you in a minute. But with the halation, we're pretty much, if I flip this on and off, you can see we get this like subtle glow. Let's see if I can adjust where this is happening. Okay, there we go. So yeah, if you're flipping that on and off, it's just adding this subtle reddish glow to the edge of her skin. And then bloom, let me flip that on and off. So I usually use the Dehancer version of this plugin. It's what I usually do. But yeah, you can see it's giving a little glow, not much on this one, but yes. And then grain is one of the main characteristics of film. If we go to 35 millimeter, you'll see this grain start to just, let me pop this bigger, punch in a little bit so you can see this better. So when we're on 65 mil, it's more of like a smoother, subtle grain. And you can go for this if you want like more of a subtle effect. But then as you go down like 35, it gets a lot chunkier. So if you really want to see the grain, 35 is probably the way to go. And then if you really want to see it, like 16. But honestly, like I feel like for me, this is like way too strong. Unless you were going for like a crazy film look for like a flashback or something, but I wouldn't use that. If you want like a smooth one that you could use on most projects, like probably go 65. And yeah, that is pretty much how you make a film look with this effect in Resolve. So now we can go ahead and just add even more to this image. So let's go ahead and start like actually color grading. So first thing I'm gonna do is maybe raise up the exposure. Let me go ahead and see where her skin is. So if you actually turn on, display qualifier focus right there, you can actually hover over with your color picker and see on the waveform like exactly where her skin is at. So it's probably right there a little hot. So yeah, I probably went a little too far with it, so you can bring it back. And then maybe somewhere around there is probably good. So for like white skin, it can be a little brighter. It's usually around like 512 or 50 to 65 IRE. So like down here, it's usually like between these two. And as we can see, we're pretty much around there. So that is looking good to me. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add more of that like filmic contrast. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to come down to the curves. Also, I'm going over to the next node and I'm coming over, second node, and then I'm putting on editable splines. So what this is gonna do is I can now like move this around. It has like handles to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start compressing the highlights more. So this is gonna give us more of that, the Filmic highlight roll off. So right now, if I like punch in, it's like where it goes into the highlights is a little harsh. So if I do something like this and then bring this down, you can kind of see it now, how it's like, it's kind of taking that crunchiness, like crunchy digitalness out of the highlights right there. So yeah, doing that, it kind of just adds more of like a smooth roll off. So we're gonna do the same thing with the shadows, and we're gonna just add some more contrast in here. So I'm lifting up these shadows just a touch. We're gonna be doing that, and then we're gonna take this handle and we're gonna start to bring it in. And then the image is gonna start getting dark. So then we're gonna go back up to the highlights and then start lifting this up. All right. And a lot of this is just kind of like eyeballing the, the image, the waveform, just like getting everything kind of where you want it, because this is going to vary depending on your image so it's going to change. All right, so somewhere right here, I'm liking it. And as we flip this on and off, we can pretty much see that little bump of contrast that we've added. And we can always like come in here and just dial this back if it's too strong. But yeah, so we have like our Filmic curve in place. And then again, we can go back to our primaries, lift gamma gain, if we want to, and just like further do this even more, like get even more going here. And I'm doing this on a panel right now, the mini panel. So just like little tweaks. So there we go. We're starting to get it looking great. So the next thing we can do is go over to saturation. And this can vary depending on your look that you're going for. So you can either go for a more saturated look or you can go for a less saturated look. It kind of just depends on what it is you're going for. For this, I'm going to go ahead and just show you like a punchy, more saturated look. So there's like a few different ways to go about saturation in DaVinci. One of them is just the saturation knob right here. And this can work depending on what you want to happen. But when you use this one, it's brightening the colors as you turn the saturation up. So that can be good. And then in some cases can be really ugly. And then the other ways are you can do it in here in the HDR wheel. And it works a little better, but it's kind of the same. Another way to do it is this way, which is the color slice way. And this way is actually a subtractive way. So it's like straight up darkening colors as they get more saturated. And this is usually the effect you want for a filmic saturation, because if you look at stuff that's shot on film, it's always having these like darker, more rich colors and less bright saturated colors. The bright saturated colors is really like a digital thing. So we're going for the filmic look, so we're going to probably do this way. And then there's another way that's also really popular, and that's like the HSV way. So the way we're going to get into that mode is you actually have to change the settings on the node. So on this node, we're going to go to color space HSV, and then you have to go to channels and disable the other channels, which are like the luminance channel and something else. But the second one is the saturation. So now you can come over to your gamma and you can actually turn this up and it'll start to saturate the image more. And a lot of people really like this way. And yeah, this way can be really good. But the problem that I've found with this way is it starts to really like artifact your image, and you'll start to, like, if I crank this up, let's start to see. Let's see. Yeah, it's not as visible on this image, really, the artifacts, but it really depends on the image that you have. But when I've used this method in the past, it kind of creates this weird noise in the shadows, and it can be really bad. Like, especially if you have a big project you're color grading with tons of shots and you start doing this method across all the shots, and you'll have one shot that just is not working, and then it just screws up the whole method for me. So I've found that I don't like this, and I've actually been using the color slice saturation the most, and I've found the most success with that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this up. Oh, sorry, we are still in that HSV color space. Let me reset that. I was like, whoa. So let's turn that up. And let's get that somewhere. Let me open up the vector scope so we can go ahead and see that real quick. Yep. All right. And then another thing we can do is I actually should have done the balance node before this, but it's okay. I can just hold control and move it over here. So we have our saturation right there, and I'm going to leave it like somewhere like 1.18. So it's giving us like a nice little color pop. And then I'm actually going to go over here and I'm going to look down here at the vector scope, and I'm just going to start using my offset right here. And what this is doing is it's pretty much just shifting the colors in your whole image. So you can see, like, as I move it around, what pretty much happens. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at my vector scope. Let me go ahead and actually look at where her skin tones are. So it's looking pretty good. It looks like it might be a little towards the pink side. So let me go ahead and just start pulling out some pink. I'm doing this on the panel so I can see it better. And yeah, actually that's looking pretty good. So you can either decide, like, if you want to go warmer with this, like more of like a sunny look here, you can warm it up there like this, or you can go more cooler. And then as we shift this cooler on the vector scope, you can see over here and down here. So this is the green from the trees, and then this is the blue from her jacket. So as we move this down, it's actually saturating the greens and the blues more. So if I move this down, it's starting to add more saturation into those. So then as I warm it up, it's adding more saturation to her skin and taking away saturation from the other things. So you kind of have to decide for this shot. This is like a bright sunny shot, so probably just going to keep it around there as well. All right, so that is like most of the look done. If we want, we can add one more node right here. So if I can label these real quick, we can go ahead and go over what we did. So we have our primaries, and then we have our curve, our curves, and then we have our balance, and then we have our saturation. And then this node is going to be an optional node to just enhance. And then here we had our film look creator. So we had our film look creator. And then this node was our output transform, or I'll just put CST, color space transform there. And yeah, so let's go ahead and actually see what we did. So if we turn off these nodes, this is what we started with. Very big difference. This was the Rec 709. And then, so this was our log. And then this was our Rec 709. And honestly, when you look at this, you're like, okay, it's not so bad. Like, but after we saw what we created, it looks pretty flat. So we turn on all these, and then that is where we ended up, which is like crazy difference. Wow. So if I turn off all that again, Rec 709, where we ended up, Something we can do is we can just see how much this did. That was our film look creator effect, which did a lot. Like it put us in the right direction, but then we did all of our changes. Oopsie, hang on. Let me do that again. So then we did all of our changes, and then we did this. So we really pushed it in that direction. So I'm gonna show you guys one more thing that we can do to spice this up even more. So one thing we can do is add a window to kind of vignette her. So I'm gonna go down here, and yeah, I'm so used to doing this on the panel, so I would do this, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it the normal way. So let me make this bigger. I'm saying go size. We can make this bigger, rotate it maybe, move it down, something like that, and then just soften it way up like this, and then we can go ahead and track this. All right, so now we got our window here, and we can go ahead and invert this. So if we do the highlight mode, I think it's this, but I press Shift H is how I do it. It is affecting everything other than our girl. So we can go ahead and do gamma over here. So what gamma is going to do is it's going to affect more the middle of the image and not the highlights or the shadows. So we can go ahead and start pulling the gamma down like this, and then do like a pretty subtle vignette here. So now, sorry, let me go to this node. We play it back. We have our soft vignette. And if you were just watching this, you probably wouldn't even notice that that was there, unless you're a colorist nerd like me and you like look at the edges or something. And then you can also see it on the waveform, as like on the outside, it kind of slopes down right there. That's a pretty easy way to tell. So that's one way that we could do it to highlight our girl. And then another way we can do this, like a more advanced way to really add some pop, is use the effect called depth map. And I'm pretty sure this is only in the studio version of Resolve. But what this is going to do is pretty much just isolate a certain range. So we can go over here to adjust limit and start pulling in this far. Oh wait, no, it's definitely going to be this one. So we can tweak this up like that. And then we can go into isolation and start like really dialing it in. So we can do something like this. Target depth, yeah, go here. And a lot of this just kind of takes like tinkering, you know? And then we turn on post filter, it's going to really kind of tighten it up at the edges of it and make it look better. So we can go ahead and turn off our thing here. And what I like to do with the depth map is actually, a lot of the time I'll do both at the same time. Like I'll be bringing up the subject and bringing down the background. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. So one way you can do that is you can go add node, if I can find it, and you go add outside node. So what that's going to do is this node here that I have is going to be the background, and then this one here is going to be our girl. So let me go ahead and turn this off. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and, if we wanted to, which I don't even think we do, but you could, is like raise up the gamma on your subject, but I don't think we need to because we already have our skin tones and everything at like the perfect level for the most part. So we can go ahead to the background though and start going down on our gamma like this. And you don't want to do it like a crazy amount. You can even do gain down, pull down some of those highlights. And you want to do this it doesn't have to be a lot, but it's going to separate, and then you can start getting some lag because it's a pretty intense effect. But what that's doing is, yeah, just bringing down our background. So we're even more focused on our subject. All right, so now that I've shown you the way of doing the film look creator in Resolve, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do that in a much quicker way that I use a lot if I'm just grading something of my own and I want a quick film look. So I've actually just went ahead and made those typical changes that I did with the film look creator in Resolve. I've pretty much made my own LUTs that just do this instantly. So I have some here. So the first thing we have is any camera. So once you have your Rec 709, you would put a node after it and put these nodes or put these LUTs, and it's pretty much going to do that, the Filmic colors right there. And then I've also made LUTs that are going to be converting the footage to Rec 709 and applying the creative Filmic look at the same time, just in the LUT. So that way I don't have to go to, the CST like I showed you and put that on and punch in all the information. Instead of doing that, I've actually made a super easy way by just having these LUTs that do both. So I have a few different flavors of these, and these are actually linked down below for you guys to purchase if you want to buy these. You can always do the Film Look Creator or use Resolve's built-in LUTs, but I just made these because they're quicker. So here's just a neutral conversion to Rec 709 like we did with the CST. And then we have our 3 different flavors of the LUTs. So this is like a cooler one. This one is, let me pop open the vector scope so we can see. So this one is a less saturated one. Then this one is more warm. And then this one is more towards pink. So I'm going to go ahead and go with this warm one because I'm looking at the vector scope and it's already kind of putting her skin tones right on the skin tone line. So if you don't know, the skin tone line is right here. To turn that on, you're going to go ahead and you're going to go over to the vector scope, and then you're going to go click these bars, whatever you call this, and then you're going to click show skin tone indicator. So you can see there. All right. So now that we have our LUT applied, we can go ahead and start doing our normal changes that we did. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling down our highlights a little bit, pulling up the gamma. Let me actually pop open the waveform so I can see where we're at. Skin tones are pretty much right around where they need to be. And then I'm going to go ahead and add maybe one more node. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding in a little bit more of that contrast. It pretty much has done it in the LUT, but I might just add a little more punch in there. Just a touch more, because we're going for a pretty punchy, saturated look. All right. So next, you could stop here. This is pretty much like a good bit of saturation already. But if you want more, you could punch this in a little bit more. I wouldn't go much further than this, but this is looking pretty good to me. And yeah, so the one thing I'm seeing is it looks like there's a little more pink in her skin. And I can see that on the vector scope. It's kind of this little patch here. It's swinging a little to the right towards red. So I also use a plugin quite a bit when I'm color grading. So this is a DCTL from Mononodes, and it pretty much lets you see where the skin is. So if you turn this on, this looks pretty crazy. But yeah, it's showing us though, like where the skin is. So if it's got a lot of pink on it there, it means like it's more pink. And then if it's completely yellow, that's where the skin tone line is. And then green is more towards green. So we can actually put this on, and then we can start swinging this over and maybe get out some of that pink. It's probably a little too much. And maybe somewhere around there. Yeah, a little more green. And then let's go ahead and turn that off. And we can see what we did. It's pretty subtle. But yeah, we took out a little bit of that pink. So if you look down here, you can see the skin goes onto the skin tone line, which is more of what we wanted. So yeah, as far as balance, yeah, I might just gamma down a little bit. Something like this. There we go. All right, that's looking pretty good to me. So next up, I might would do the same thing that I showed you in the last thing, where I would do either the magic mask or the depth map. One other thing is we need to add our film grain and our halation. So that is kind of the good thing about that resolve effect, is they're there. But the way that I like to do this is I use a plugin called Dehancer, and this is a really good tool. I'm going to go ahead and disable all the stuff at the bottom, but I really like their halation and their film grain in here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the film grain. So you can go ahead and enable this. It's pretty strong out the gate, but if you pull this back, it is looking pretty nice. And we have some nice film grain. So I end up liking this one. And then also they have a pretty nice halation as well. And it adds a little bit of glow on the edges. So if I turn this off, if you look like right here, you can see it better, but it adds that glow. So that's pretty nice. And then I also like doing bloom. And what this is doing is, if I just crank it all the way up, you can just see it's given this kind of bloom glow effect. And I really like doing this. I think the halation might be a little strong. Let me dial this back. A little bit of that red is a little too strong. And then you can do the same thing with the bloom, the impact, pull that back, and then close those down. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna disable this real quick, and then I'm gonna do our little magic mask trick right quick. Go ahead and do that and track that real quick. All right, that is done tracking. So I'm gonna go ahead and invert this, and I'm gonna just pull back the background just a touch. So there we go. And now we take a look. It's looking pretty sweet. So we can now turn on our halation and all that fun stuff. And now we have a pretty sweet image. So we can go ahead and compare these two. So if I go ahead and I can grab a still of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we did. So let me go to our Rec 709, or actually no, we have the Rec 709 and the film look built in. So the way that I would compare that is, let me just make a little node that just has like slog3 on it. All right. So this here is our Rec 709, and let's go ahead and look at our look, and bam, that is looking sweet. So this is what we ended up doing, really saturated, and her coat is swinging a little more towards cyan on my LUT. Let's go ahead and check out, let me go on here, and let's just see the difference. So this is with my LUT and Dehancer, and then this is the look that we created. This is what we created with the free film look creator tool in DaVinci. Still pretty sweet. Let me see. But yeah, I do like this look better, the one that we just created. Not a shameless plug for the LUTs, but I don't know I think it's because, yeah, just the actual film look that I'm using in my LUT is more towards like the Kodak 2383, and then the one in Resolve, I'm not quite sure like what it's doing. It's adding some split toning, but I think that is a lot to do with it. I really like this kind of cyan that's being pushed into her jacket, and then it's got these more warm, I don't know, it's like a fall vibe on this one. So I really like both of them, to be honest, but yeah, those are the differences. Let me actually I can duplicate them and flip between them better. So this is our first one. And then this is our second one that we made with my LUT. All right, first one here. And then the second one here. All right, guys, that is going to conclude this video. Hopefully you learned something here, got something out of this. If you enjoyed and want to see more of this in the future, go ahead and subscribe.